So we are going to move on to Alva Kershaw. And just tell me a little bit about yourself and, how you became part of the book, and we'll start digging into your part.
Okay. I was invited to the event. And I was excited because I went to the book collaboration, the signing event that they had for removing the face. And I thought to myself, this was amazing, an amazing group of women. And then I thought, okay, no more of it really. And then was invited to the event, and she introduced the opportunity, and I wasn't gonna do it. I wasn't. She was like, come on out to the table if you're interested and sign up. And I was like, yeah, that's nice. No. And I didn't. I was one of the last people to go out, and despite the fact that we had already had a conversation about it, because what I am a storyteller, right? And I write, I just don't write for other people. So moving from being a thinker, right? I'm a thought leader, being a therapist, writing for myself in journals, right? And narrating stories, helping my clients to change their stories, it still was a stretch for me to say that I am a writer. So it was definitely a transformation. So within this going deeper, there was always a layer to pull off. It wasn't just the chapter you were writing, it was listening. It was every step that you take was a challenge to say, wait a minute, is this my fear? And then discovering the embedded lie. And so you think to yourself, well, I'm not a writer. So how can I even go and do this? Because that, in a sense, is a false representation of what I am. And so I had no idea what I was getting into. And I said, and this is also a process of a reflection that other people had given to me. I didn't wake up one day and say, I want to write for other people. What I woke up and said is, I want to write for myself. My clients have always reflected to me that you need to write a book. And I said, about what? Because a part of the journey for me was making sure that I wrote something as a therapist that did no harm. I can't re-traumatize my clients by telling my story that I've lived. So I had to figure out, how can I tell it without having my readers die on the vine? And then you can't hear the embedded lie or the truth that comes after, because you're stuck in the traumatic story. And that was the reason I said, I gotta take a deep breath on this. And I remember the class when she said, type in the chat, I'm a writer. You would think that that's the easiest thing. I am a writer. She was trying to get us to write in the chat that I am a writer, to say in your space on Zoom that you are a writer. It does not come easy when you think, I'm an imposter if I say that. That is not my truth. So when we made that day that we showed up in the photos, that we all have on shirts that say, I am a writer, that was a triumphant moment for all of us, but especially for me.
Yeah, right. I love that. I love that. Because like you said, it's hard sometimes for people to even type, I am a writer. So it's going to be people that will be listening to this, that they know God has spoken that to them, or they know that that's part of who they are, but it's hard to articulate it. So that's what stops you from doing it.
It is.
Because until you say, I am a writer, you won't write anything. You won't write. You gotta do that.
Right.
But your chapter was on the fear of false narratives. And again, I will say this again, if you are not ready, we were kind of joking around a little earlier, but if you're a person that you just kind of want to stay in the shallow water, you're okay with status quo, you don't want to pick this book up. This book is really for people that want to go into the deep, because you're going to, in reading your story, it's going to uncover some stuff about you. And unless you're ready to deal with it, you're not going to want to pick the book up. Just leave it, just say, okay, I'll wait, I'm good. It's kind of like that thing they have out called Where's the Meat, or it's a documentary on Netflix called What's in the Meat or something like that. Yes. I'm like, I don't want to watch that because I want to eat meat right now. So I don't want to be free from the best. So that's what I would say with this. If you are, you want to just kind of live in this shallow end, do not pick the book up. Pick the book up if you want to deal with things like the fear of false narratives. And you just start us off again. You just like kick the door down. I was 15 years old the first time I heard, "You ain't nothing and you will never be nothing. You are just a project girl. I don't know who you think you are to believe that you're going to college." Tell me about that 15-year-old girl hearing that.
When I think about it, I just remember being very defiant and thinking to myself, yeah, that's not my story. That may be your story. That's not my story. And so one of the things that we recognize, and we've had discussions about it, is that the fear will resurface. So while I was able at 15 to say, didn't think anything about it, didn't think a second about it. And as you get deeper into my chapter, my supports that helped me to not think about it were in place. As I've grown older, those supports have passed away and that narrative resurfaced. It hits different when your number one supporter is no longer there. And so at 15, I was able to stave it off. I was able to say, oh my goodness, that's how you think. When you have multiple losses in your life and things change and you change, and you have more time behind you than you do in front, you have things that you have accomplished, milestones that you've hit, and then you think, I've arrived and I'm at this place. What happens when I'm at that place and I don't feel like I have it to do over, or that I can recover again? So sometimes I think when we overcome a fear, one of the embedded fears in the fear of the false narrative is the fear of not being able to duplicate success. You see, and that's that fear. So you can go to college one time, can you go again? You can get a good job one time, can you go again? You can get married one time, can you marry again? You can love, can you love again? And it's always, can I duplicate that success at even the same level of success? And so you find that embedded lie in the fear of the false narrative. What story are you telling about me? I was able to do it at 15. Can you do it again 30 years later? And that makes you question, who am I, and what am I made of?
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, and I think, with false narratives, that's like strongholds, So the crazy thing about it, like you say, you're 15, you hear that, and you kind of brush it off, but yet it is
embedded.
It plants a seed, and all seeds need is a little water to grow. And so the crazy thing about a false narrative is then when you fail at something or something doesn't turn out right, it's like, I'm nothing, I'm no good. It just keeps planting that thing, and it keeps growing that thing. And like you say, it becomes that story that there are some people that's married to a false narrative. I'm a single mom. I used to hear this lady, I'm a single mom, I struggle. It was like that was her story, so it's hard to move past that if that's your story. It was a false narrative. I mean, it wasn't false that you're a single mom, but that you have to struggle, So somewhere that I have to struggle was part of that. And then people marry that, and it's really hard to break free from that false narrative.
It becomes your identity. And I think to your point of seeds being planted, it's like there was an initial wound. I think the thing that really is coming out in this conversation for me is that I denied the wound. So not only did I fight it off, but I pretended that it didn't land. that was a punch that missed me, when in fact it landed. The punch landed, and it showed up over and over and over again. Because of the initial wound, I kept getting re-wounded and re-traumatized by the same narrative, just having no idea what the narrative was. And while you're able to be successful to a certain point, when you get to this place of, oh, this is where I'm supposed to flourish in all my success, but why not? Why am I not going to the place in the heights where I always felt were mine to go and have, and if I did this, then I should have this? It's because I believed the narrative.
You know what's interesting? Pulling back the layers, and this is why pulling back the layers is so important, because when I think about your story, I remember that we were in, because what we did was we went through the 4-week course, the Formula for Fear, with each, together as a group. But I remember it was week 3 or week 4 as we were processing through and pulling back the layers, and it was just that aha moment for you, and she was like, I got it, because I don't think you knew at that point what your chapter was gonna be. Wow. And she was like, this was a breakthrough moment, the moment when you realized it was the false narratives that was keeping you stuck. Like, that's the story that I need to talk about. I need to tell how false narratives, the lies that were embedded in me by the false narratives, that's the pattern that keeps showing up. That's the wound that started all of this. And so I just remember that moment in our session, our writer session together, where it hit Alva, and she was like, false narratives, that's it. So
because we were the class, and I had the thing about it is, if anybody, this conversation is kind of like a lot multi-layered, because if you think that this was a straight process, like we did one thing and then the next thing, it wasn't this way at all. And one of the things I remember having awareness that I was in a class, and that we would meet on certain dates, and that we had the Formula for Fear, and we were going to do the class. And I started writing my story. And I was like, I don't know why this story wants to be told, but I'm going to write, even though I had no idea. We hadn't gotten to the truth of the matter is. We hadn't gotten to the end of the formula, but I started to tell the story, and I said, okay, well, I'm going to tell this story. I just don't know how it's going to pan out. We don't know what the last segment of this chapter is going to be. And then we're in class, and she goes, it takes a lot of courage to even, again, it's courage, because we're in the class, hit my mic, I'm sitting there going, I don't know where I am. I don't know what I'm stuck. Like, I don't know what this is about. I don't have a concept. I don't have a full idea. And I tell her this, and we say this, and she goes, oh, it just sounds like a false narrative. And I go, are you serious? I was like, and it permeated every part of me, mind, body, spirit. Like, it just went, Holy Spirit showed up, felt it all the way to my core, and was like, what? But not only do you feel it, you realize it hits the screen, it hits the paper, but it falls off of you. Like, people, it's almost like when we ask that question, how do you know? When chains are breaking, they broke. You know that they are just like click, click, click. And that's what happened. And it was an amazing journey. It was amazing, life-changing. Yes. Yeah.
And so you took them through a process of because you have a course that you do, but without giving details, because then people should sign up for your course.
That's right.
After we're finished, I'm gonna have you just give some of your social media stuff so people could know how to find you and all that kind of stuff. But that formula, was it like a formula for fear?
Yes.
So just touch on it so it gives people enough to say, I want to know more about that.
So every week there was an equation, and the equation was really a call to action in our lives, in our emotions, in our purpose journey. It was, this plus this equals this. This minus this. Your experience minus something else, it equals fear. Wow. And so it really called us to have to think deeper about our experiences. It caused us to have to think deeper about our pain. It caused us to have to think deeper about what we needed to remove, what was adding, to our lives, and then those things that really had negative value, and we really needed to remove those. So when we say a formula, every week there was an equation that we really had to come face to face with. And the purpose of doing that, it is a 4-week course that I teach to anybody who signs up. Right. But one of the requirements and one of the benefits of them being a part of this journey was they got this 4-week course. It was because I did not want us to just write a book. I did not want us to just put words on the paper. I wanted us to position ourselves to be conduits for transformation in the lives of people who read those stories. And the only way we could do that and prepare ourselves to help others to transform is that we actually do the work in the background. This was not about, lights, camera, action. It was not about the book signings. It was about, listen, we cried a lot. Yeah. we cried a lot, myself included. Even being a visionary author, there were times where I sat with my chapter and cried. But the formula had us, it put us in a position where we really had to face different aspects of the fear. And it was really the thing that helped us to pull back the layers.
That's good. That's good. So ultimately, through all, that you went through, you talk about the loss of your mother, that's traumatic, how did you ultimately deal with that false narrative that had been plaguing you? Just being able to kind of put that
into perspective. I think, as it's been a vibration throughout the conversation, is that you do not just deal with it once, but to realize once, to look back and say that I've already overcome a lot of the parts of the false narrative, that I keep living through it. And so I often think of it like watching a movie. You think you're watching one thing, and when you look back at it, you're watching something else. And while I was thinking that I was watching my failures accumulate and stop me, when I look back, I see my strength. And that's how I found my voice. So I watch that movie now, and I'm strong, and I know more now than I knew then. And now you can't. I'm not gonna let it defeat me, because I know more now than I did when I was coming through and I thought I was failing forward, and I was actually gaining strength, gaining success, gaining wisdom, gaining knowledge. I was doing the thing, right? The very thing that I was afraid of, I was already in it, already doing it. It's like the fish looking for the ocean, and you already
right, and you in the ocean.
In it, right? And so now that I can look back on it, and that's why, removing the fear, I think one of the biggest obstacles is looking at it. That's one of the reasons people don't do it. It's one of the reasons, as a therapist, people don't come to therapy, right? And here I am, a therapist, telling my story in public, looking at my stuff. If I can do it, you can do it, right? And you're already overcoming it, naming it, claiming it, defeating it step by step, bite by bite, and here we are. Here we are.
Wow.
I am a writer.
Amen. And you said in your last part, in these moments, I get still and quiet and let it happen. I let the truth come in. I allow the memory of my mother's voice to vibrate through my own. You can absolutely do anything that you set your mind to do. Every journey begins with a single step. Get up and get on with it. My goodness. Woo! Yeah. I'm like, okay. Yeah. So you got to be able to counter that negative voice with that truth. Yeah. And you knew your mother's voice was truth.
Yes. And
that's the kicker.
That is the kicker. And I think the other part, when I hear it, it brings me to that space every time, like, whew, you have to fight back the tears. Because one of the amazing things about maturation or, growing up, you got to grow up, is that we are taught that I got to be separate in order to be grown. I got to do it on my own. But when I can still claim my mother's voice, but instead of saying, oh, those are her words, no, those are our words, because now I agree. Now I agree with her. I agree with my mama. So she can say it and I can say it too. So it's no longer people coming to me saying your mother would be proud. I can say my mother is proud, right? So when you can vibrate all that your ancestry is through yourself, then you are already doing it. You're arriving, you're shedding, you're growing. And I have daughters who are watching. And one day when I'm no longer around, I want them to be able to say, I can absolutely do whatever I set my mind to do. So get up and get on with it.
Get on with it. Woo! Okay, all right. So my goodness, like I said, it's powerful. That's good.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes,
Guys, I will tell you, that was an amazing episode. You know, I've said this before, we are committed to helping you launch deeper. So you don't want to miss an episode. You don't want to miss coming up soon will be Masterclass number 2. And the way that you stay connected on all of our social media platforms is launching deeper. And we definitely want you to go to our website, launchingdeeper.com, because that way you can sign up for our weekly newsletter. That is going to keep you in the know. You don't want to miss it. Stay connected. Watch next week, because we will be dropping the next episode of Fireside Chat. Thank you guys for joining us.